Okay, so hey everybody, this is Will from Sembra Naturals, and you're listening to the first of a series of kind of podcast style interviews with people in the world of Kanna or Sceletium Tortuosum. Today, I'm joined by Ferdinand Labuschagne, who is the founder of KarooKanna in South Africa. Ferdinand, welcome to this session. How are you?
Thank you, William. I'm wonderful, thank you.
Excellent. Well, it's great to see you again. So, to give a bit of background, we traveled out to South Africa at the beginning of the year. So, I got to meet you about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and we had a discussion about Sceletium Tortuosum and some of the work that you've been doing out there. So, if you want to maybe give us a little bit of background on your company, where you are with things. I know that you've recently done a harvest of quite a substantial crop over there in South Africa. So you're fairly close to Cape Town, is that right?
Yeah, we're about 180 kilometers from Cape Town, so it's not too far a drive. And yes, we just took our first commercial harvest last week. We did a test run, and the material is now dried in dried ovens. So we're in the process of doing the testing on the alkaloids now. So we'll know within the next week or so what the content is. So those tests are all in the process of being done. So within the next week and 10 days, we'll know exactly where we stand with this specific crop.
That's excellent. And so for our listeners then, before we delve into alkaloids and what those are, I thought it might be good for us to just backtrack to a little bit of the history of Sceletium tortuosum, which is a succulent plant that grows in South Africa. It's native to some of the regions in South Africa. Can you give us an idea of where people could actually find it out in its natural habitat?
The geographical area where you find it is Central Karoo and the Klein Karoo up until the south part of a province called Eastern Cape Province here in South Africa. So it's quite a large footprint, but not all Sceletiums are the same. There are 9 sub-chemotypes of Sceletium. We are focused on a strain that is called Tortuosum because it's got the medicine that we want to used in the process or manufacturing of products at the end of the day. And the medicine that's contained in that specific plant is the type of medicine that our clients that buys plant material from our farm wants to see in the plants, because that's obviously what they use then to induce the effect with the users of their products.
Okay, and so in terms of how it's been used, there's a long history of use, and there's a tribe,
Yeah.
if I get this right, the Khoi San tribes of South Africa have used the plant, and traditionally they would dry it out, and then they would use it as like a chew. So they would take the plant material and chew it, and then they would even remove it and then ferment it and re-ingest or reuse it. So could you tell us a little bit about how it's been used by South African tribes people and what the benefits are of that traditional use?
Yeah, sure. So South Africa was colonized. The first colonizers set foot on land here in 1652. A guy from Netherlands called Jan van Riebeeck and Simon van der Stel was the first settlers here in Cape Town, on the foot of Table Mountain. And so when they started setting up shop here in Cape Town, they started doing trips into Namakwaland to go and see and interact with the native people to see what kind of trade that can be established by them working for the Dutch company. The Afrikaans is the Oos-Indische Compagnie. It's I don't know what it's in English, but it's the East Dutch Company, which was the biggest trading company in the world at that specific time.
Wow.
So they traveled up in Namakwaland, which is north of Cape Town, which is about 200, 300 kilometers north. Namakwaland would start. And they interacted with the Khoisan, which is a tribe of the Bushman people, as well as the Khoi people. So the San is the Bushman part of it, and the Khoi is the native to Cape Town area part of the native people. And so they interacted with these people during their trips north into Namakwaland. And the Khoi and the San said, listen, you need to try this. This is what we use when we go on long hunting trips to help us with if we get thirsty, number one, and it also elevates the mood. So if we are long times away from our people in doing long hunting trips, we take this with as a chew, and we prepare it beforehand and we chew it, and that settles our mind to get us grounded spiritually to the land that we are hunting, and it helps us focus and it lifts our spirits. And Simon van der Stel said, yeah, whatever, and he took some of it back home. And as fate would have it, he decided to try it out on his own people working for him. And the first written accounts of this plant where the settlers have interacted with it and used it was in 1652 by Jan van Riebeeck as well as Simon van der Stel, where they wrote that they gave it to their men, and 60 to 90 minutes after they've asked the men to chew on these kanna, it was apparent that their spirits was lifted. They started singing while they were working. They were focused on their work, and they made an inscription in their journals that went back to the East Dutch Company that said, this plant seems to work very well. We believe it's got great commercial value for the future. We, as our company, should keep our hand on this plant. And that's how the relationship started with the South African plant moving into Europe.
Yeah, so there's actually a long history of it being used outside of South Africa, and it's been
Yes.
taken to different parts of the world. I wanted to just take the opportunity, since you were talking about some of the effects that it's had on people traditionally, to give the audience a bit of background on my journey. So I discovered this plant a couple of years ago, and I took it in the form of some dried plant material inside capsules. And further to your points, I've really found that the level of focus that can be achieved and the level of sort of contentment with the current situation, the kind of being in the now feeling that you can get from taking this as a supplement, it's really quite incredible, because for a long time I've sort of suffered with or lived with attention kind of issues, very much ticking all the boxes for ADHD, and with that comes a level of anxiety, which in combination can cause really kind of low mood state, a depressive kind of state, and so I've kind of over time tried to understand where that's coming from and how to deal with it, and different practices have given me different things, but I found that with this sort of plant supplement, I've been able to get incredible results in terms of productivity day to day, and just a general feeling of ease, and that things are sort of taking care of themselves, but you don't have the same level of angst and worry. And I think one of the things that people often have to deal with if they're going through a stressful period is this fight or flight kind of response, this feeling that your heart flutters, and you're getting overwhelmed with stress, you're getting overwhelmed with anxiety, and it's sort of quite paralyzing, makes it quite difficult to get on with the tasks that you have to do. And so for me personally, and I think a lot of other users report this as well, it's just giving you that opportunity to crack on with things, enjoy it, be in the moment with it, and not feel that level of anxiety. And I'm really pleased to say that it's certainly been the case with me. So I don't know if you have any personal stories to share like that, or if you have people that that have had similar stories, but that's certainly my experience of using Sceletium.
Thank you for that, William. Yeah, my personal experience with it is, you have to take Sceletium for a specific reason. This is real hard medicine. So unless you are dealing with a issue that is, as you say, concentration, depression, anxiety, low mood, that you wouldn't really feel the effect of Kanna if you take it. So it's some of my friends that they ask me for Kanna, and I say, what do you want to treat with it? No, they just want to feel how it works. So I said to him, okay, if I give you 2 headache pills right now, and in an hour's time I'll ask you, do you think the headache pills work? He said, no, I don't know, because I never had a headache. I said, it's exactly the same with Kanna. Don't just take it because you think you're going to get a high or something. This is not a psychedelic. It is a psychoactive. So it works on the neurological system. So my personal usage of it is not to treat any form of depression or low mood or things like that. I, like you, suffer from time to time with concentration.
Mm.
So I use it for concentration for myself. And but the exact same formula that I use, I do give to people that suffer with a low, they call it gray weather syndrome. It's people that, just it's a low form of depression. So
Yeah.
they need some kind of mood enhancer,
Yeah.
and it works perfectly for them. In fact, I have a lady that suffers a lot from anxiety, and the anxiety causes her notches in her back, the
Mm.
muscles here going down the spine. And she said she doesn't feel anything else but that her back relaxes. That means that she hasn't got this tense feeling, which means she doesn't develop headaches. So she cannot go without Kanna for a day because it treats her normal anxiety. Now, what's
Yeah.
very, very, very interesting about Kanna is this is probably one of the natural medicinal plant that has got the longest safety data of any other medicinal plant in South Africa, native to South Africa. And what is very, very important to mention is that currently there are about 100 over 120 scientific papers written on Kanna, and trying to find out the scientific community, try and establish or try to establish if there's any legs to the claims that this work for, for mental health disorders, and if so, on what mechanism in the brain does it actually work that they can find out. Now, before I go into that, I think it's important for your listeners just to explain how Kanna works in terms of the medicinal compound that is active. So let's just go back to the plant itself. There is, at this point in time, 9 individual chemotypes of Sceletium. The one we focus on is called Tortuosum. The reason we focus on Tortuosum is that each of these 9 individual chemotypes of Sceletium has got a different profile of alkaloids contained in that specific plant. So this is a very intriguing little plant, in that it's not easy to duplicate the plant on commercial scale anywhere, because this plant is very, very much affected by where it grows, how much water it gets, what kind of UV, what's the height above sea level. Um, so you can go and harvest or try and harvest under permit um, material in the wild, bring it onto a farm, but when you start farming it and try to propagate it commercially, that they would stop producing these alkaloids because they're out of their natural environment. It's a strange environment for them. They don't know how to deal with the environment they're in. So you have to really start cultivating and propagating new chemotypes for specifically the area that you want to go into propagation and commercial scale. So we've gone through that process. We've applied for wild harvest permitting when we started this process 4 years ago, and we did wild harvesting under permit in the Karoo region, where we know historically the best Sceletium tortuosum plants with the highest amount of alkaloids. And so we've brought that onto the farm, and this is what we have been propagating for the last 4 years, and it's taken a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to the point that we can actually take a harvest. And we're very optimistic of what is going to come out the harvest. And at the end of the day, we got into the business because our heart is to help people that suffers from mental health illness. Specifically because people suffering from these mental health illnesses do not have any alternatives to pharmaceutical products. And all we wanted to do is we don't want to compete with pharmaceuticals. We just want to offer a natural alternative to something that works as well.
And it's a natural alternative. That's great. Well,
Yes.
thank you for some of the background as to what you're doing, and the challenges perhaps with growing the plants with the right alkaloid profile. So let's circle back to that word alkaloid for the viewers and listeners. What is an alkaloid? Can you give us an idea of which are the main alkaloids in Sceletium tortuosum, and which are the ones that you feel have the largest impact, and what might be the difference between the properties and the qualities of these different alkaloids?
So here's where it gets very interesting, this little plant. Currently scientifically proven minimum of 12 alkaloids contained in the alkaloid profile. So what that means is that of the plant material that you harvest and you dry out, a percentage of that dried plant material would be made out of these individual constituents called alkaloids. And these alkaloids are all named. So what these alkaloids are, they're different molecules that is contained in this profile. So let's say the profile contains 5 of the most important molecules that has been researched, that each and every plant has got a different ratio of the individual alkaloids that is present in the profile. So if we say there's a total the total alkaloid active profile of the plant is 1%. That means that 1% of a kilogram is the actual total alkaloids contained. And then you'll have to look off that 1%, mesembrine, mesembrinone, mesembranol, delta 7, mesembrinone. They all have a different weight and ratio of the total. So you'd always want to be looking for something with a fairly high mesembrine loading, because some of the research that's been done has been done on the molecule called mesembrine. And some of the researchers believe that that is the main peanut in the packet that really induces the calming effect and the antidepressant effect. They have found that the molecule size of the alkaloid structure of this plant is exactly the molecule size of the pharmaceutical SSRIs. And it works when it's blocking the reuptake in the nervous system of the serotonin, so that the serotonin in your brain has longer time to circulate, so that you can, through the whole of the day, have the effect of the serotonin making you feel good emotionally during the day. So that is the current working of it. And some researchers has even found that it is a PDE4 inhibitor as well. And so it gets absorbed through the nervous system, and they have not found any side effects, apart from if you overdose, you might have a slight headache or start to feel nausea. But
yeah, the overdose, I mean, you're talking about an amount that is, tens of multipliers higher than the recommended dose. So in the same way that, if you took 10 or 20 ibuprofen, you'd have a serious issue.
Yes.
The amounts that we're talking about in terms of recommended doses are very, very safe, and the science supports that. In fact, going back to some of the points you raised there on the research, we have some documents that we can share with our listeners, which we can link as well, which gives some peer-reviewed scientific journals with some of this detail in it. So on the science, I want to just move on now to the testing of Sceletium for these alkaloids that you just described and explained. So in terms of people selling Kanna products or Sceletium products, it seems to be that there's a real variance of quality and what people are reporting from some of the products that they're buying. And that's down to the fact that a lot of suppliers out there will not have a COA test to show their customers what the alkaloid profile is. Now, your operation out in South Africa, you're making sure that you do full testing to understand the alkaloid profile, so you know how much of the working actives inside the plant are going to get through into that capsule or into that packet, or whichever way that you sell your product. So I wanted to just talk to you about Sceletium testing, and also the association that you are setting up in South Africa, and what that's going to do in terms of trying to increase that quality assurance for people.
Thank you for that. Yeah, one of the reasons that me and a couple of other people that is heavily vested in the Sceletium industry has decided to set up an industry association to organize and to start putting parameter structures and standards together, whereby people involved in growing Sceletium, manufacturing, all can, in some way, shape, or form, agree on testing standards for alkaloids, and claims that we need to be very careful of in terms of when we start selling and moving this product, that we don't make claims that is unsubstantiated and actually can hurt people. So what we did is we started an association called SAPA, which is an acronym for South African Botanical Plant Association. And this association has been constituted during the course of January this year, still very new. But we already did our first commercial conference last year in Johannesburg, a natural product conference, starting to really interact with the natural product community. And it was alarming to us at that point in time. That community of people in South Africa is supposed to know a lot about medicinal plants. And I would say 90% of the people I personally interacted with on Sceletium has never heard of Sceletium. And this is in South Africa. Yeah, it was an eye-opener for me. And so it just underscored one of the reasons we started this association is to get the plant and its working to people to understand, what they really have as an alternative to pharmaceutical products currently, and that it is a natural product. How does it work? How to take it? What's safe to take? What's not safe to take? So we as an association are there to do a couple of things. Number one, if we want to organize the industry and make it a safe space for everybody to operate in, we need to look at conforming, firstly, the testing methodology, the protocol on how to test for these alkaloids. Because number one, if you're testing for something in a laboratory, you have to have a testing standard which you test against. And the alkaloids, pure quality alkaloid to purchase to put into your HPLC machine or whatever machine you're using to do the testing, firstly, that need to be available to more laboratories around the world. Then there must be a protocol written on how to actually test for the alkaloids against the testing references or the testing standards. So that if I send a parcel to be tested to a university and to a client in America, they can make use of the testing protocol. They can purchase the individual standardized alkaloid test references, and they can do their own testing based on the agreed protocol for how to test for these alkaloids.
We here in the UK, we have some top universities that get grants and budgets to do all sorts of exciting new work with botanicals and understanding, the power of some of these plants that seem undiscovered by some of these institutions, these educational institutions. So it will be very, very interesting to see if we can try and encourage more testing to be done of Sceletium here in the UK, and that will allow us to have one test done in South Africa and then a sort of corroborating test second to that in the UK. So I wanted to now talk about the ways in which people can use Sceletium. So my personal experience with it so far is that I thought it would be appropriate to pay homage to the traditional peoples of using Sceletium by chewing the plant material. So I acquired some Sceletium on my trip to South Africa, and I've tried it in the chewing form. In the fermented form, it has quite a salty taste and a bit of a bitter taste. And of course, when you chew anything that's a kind of loose powder, it's not the most pleasant experience. So I actually ended up making a similar product that you might find in Scandinavia, these snus products you can get, tobacco pouches, and I ended up creating a kind of pouch which could contain the Sceletium, and then I could chew and swallow the saliva. And that's a way to feel the effects of Sceletium, I think, a little bit quicker. So the onset is quicker because the contact of those actives is getting into the system through the mouth and with your saliva. But also I've been taking it as in an oral dose, so in capsule form as well. So both times with fermented Sceletium. I wanted you to maybe talk about why it is that Sceletium is sometimes fermented and what difference that makes. I know that there's been some science and research behind a common acid which is found in leafy greens as well, oxalic acid, I believe it's called, and it can be quite destructive to our digestive system and the liver and the kidneys. So if you want to talk about the fermentation process, maybe the history of that having been done by some of the tribes people.
Yeah, so how they used to prepare it when they harvest it, there's a specific time of year when you harvest these plants. And if you are harvesting in the right time of year, what they used to do is to crush the stems and leaves and rooting systems. They would crush it between two stones. Then they would put it between the skin of an animal that they've killed and leave it in the sun. Leave it in the sun. That pasty, gooey, wet material they'll leave in the sun for at least 7 days to ferment. After that, they will take it out of the pouch and they will put it on a surface where they can dry it in the sun. And after that, then it is what they would call as fermented material. They call it, they up the effect of it. So it is a very interesting claim to make, that fermentation drives different chemical processes in the material, and the jury is still out on that in terms of scientific research. But what has been found that is if you dealing with a plant with a high oxalic value or oxalic compound in the plant itself, it does seem to, the fermentation process does seem to minimize or dilute the oxalic acid, which means that you do not get that disruptive compound into your body on a big scale. But I would want to mention, though, that the amount that you're supposed to take, amount of Sceletium per day, is so little that the potential side effects of oxalic acid in your system is very, very low. But that being said, this is the way that the native people prepared the material. After they've dried it in the sun, they will then keep it in the pouch, and as they feel they need it, they will take it out and they will physically chew it in their mouth and chew on it, and that the saliva then will be taken up through the glands and quickly get into the bloodstream. That's why you would have felt it the onset of it is quicker through the mouth than if you were to take it in a product or capsule or a beverage or any form of a food supplement that goes into the stomach, and from there it needs to be taken up into the bloodstream. So it does seem to be working much faster through the mouth area, either by form of a chewable or a tincture or the dry powder in your mouth. But I would not recommend that to people that are sensitive to things that don't taste well. It does not taste well at all.
Exactly. I mean, it's not going to taste like a sugar sweet or anything like that. So
no.
So you mentioned a tincture there. So that's when you extract, as far as possible, the actives from the plant. And there are some different methods to do that. If you were to do it with a grain alcohol or a grape alcohol, that would draw some of the alkaloids from the dried plant material, and then you'd be left with a liquid that people can then use to either add to a beverage or take under the tongue. Again, if they were to take it under the tongue, that bitter taste or that fairly unpleasant taste might be off-putting. So as a tincture, you can quite easily add that into a drink. Is that right? So people can take it that way, and they can have a convenient sort of small tincture bottle that they can use Sceletium with.
Yeah, you're 100% right. But you must remember, there are taste maskers that you can put into the tincture, like a peppermint, that will take away the bad taste of it, and you'll be left with a peppermint taste in your mouth after taking that tincture. But you are right. Extract is important. If you do extracts, you get uniformity and you can control the amount of alkaloids per dosage much better than you can just putting dry plant material into capsules.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. And then just going back to the farming practices that you use, and in terms of what Sceletium needs to grow efficiently, we want, as far as possible, to work with suppliers who are using organic practices and regenerative practices, and as far as possible, not using chemical insecticides, pesticides, and so on. So, with your operation, am I right in thinking that that's the kind of direction that you've gone with KarooKanna? And if you could talk to us about, how you've built the farm out there, and your most recent harvest. I think you mentioned to me it's a couple of tons. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is potential couple of tons, definitely so. Our facility, we have quite a big facility in the sphere of Sceletium. Sceletium should not be seen in, is not a form of commercial farming that you would associate with the normal farmers out there doing commercial stuff on grains, corn, that type of thing. You're talking very, very, very small footprint farm size in terms of your amount of space you need to grow crops. Now, in saying that, the reasons for that is many, but the issue is that if it's not an easy plant to grow on commercial scale. Firstly, number two is because this is seen as a high value commodity, if you have big acreages of it and you pick up a problem in terms of a biological sickness or a pest or something like that, it can affect the whole crop and very quickly. So the way that we've structured KarooKanna is that we've gone through what we would call the pilot phase and concept proving, and that we did on a 3-hectare facility, and the 3-hectare facility is full of plants, and this is the plants that we are harvesting now. So there's every farmer out there that does farm this plant has got his own module of farming in the way he farms it. Does he farm it in the ground? Does he farm it in a packet? Does he do it hydroponically? And each will have their own IP developed for that specific strain of plant he's growing in that specific location, taking into account the climatic conditions, the humidity, and the UV of the sun, because all of these things have an effect on the plant the day that you are harvesting it. So unless you create the right environments for this plant to grow, you'll harvest a big green plant like this, which looks fantastic, but would contain very little or no of the medicinal compounds, the alkaloids in it. So it is very important to understand the type of the chemotype and strain that you are working with, and if it works for that area where you want to farm it in the way that you want to farm it. So that is very important. And so, yes, we believe that this plant, because it is a natural medicine, needs to be grown organically. So we don't use any form of pesticides or any form of chemical on the plant that is not certified organic at all. For the specific reason is we do not want to have problems in future of any form of pesticides on our plants or our products that it's exported to international markets, because these markets does test for pesticides when it gets there, and it is very important to do so, because this is medicine. It is not just a lunch bar you eat every now and then. It is if it's something that you're going to take more frequently than not, you have to buy from people that are farming it organically with good farming or good agricultural practices.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, we're totally with you on that one. With our product range so far, we hope to expand, and we hope to be able to use the product that you're preparing as well. So it's an exciting time for the world of Sceletium. It's remarkable to me, and I feel very blessed that I discovered it, because it's done incredible things for me personally, and I hope to share that with other people here in the UK and further afield as well. I think that we have um, a situation in the world. You know, we're living in this kind of golden age where we've looked forward to this moment in time. Everybody's sort of dreamed of and worked towards this moment in time, but there's this quite quite large global mental health crisis. I'd say, you know, lots of people are struggling to keep up and adapt to this ever-changing world with an onslaught of you know, sensory stimulus and new technology and so on. So the rise of these technologies and our reliance on social media and all these things is sort of like all coming into play. But I think a reconnection to what nature has to offer, you know, a reconnection to what's out there as plant medicines, as aids to our everyday life, and you know, making sure to have lifestyle practices that help you along as well. You know, you can't just take Sceletium and then be a slob and have a terrible diet full of ultra processed foods and you know,
Correct.
all these other things. So definitely, it's a food supplement. When you look to start on a new food supplement, if you're unsure, obviously speak to a healthcare professional. And of course, a food supplement is not a substitute for a healthy diet and lifestyle. So
Correct.
I just wanted to tell the listeners and the viewers, if you are considering trying Kanna or Sceletium for the first time, definitely avoid if you are on SSRI or MAOI medications. Those are sort of contradictory to taking this. And if you'd like to try this product, you can visit sembranaturals.com. If you want to know more about Ferdinand and his business, that's KarooKanna. We'll give a link down into the description there. It's been really wonderful to talk to you, Ferdinand, and thank you for giving our listeners a little bit of insight into this incredible plant and what it can do for people. I just want to hand over to you to just say a few words on the outlook and the future for Kanna and its applications in the coming years. You know, several years from now, 5 years, 10 years. What do you hope for this plant? What do you hope for its future?
Well, our aim has always been and will be, and our aim that we are taking is that we want to position this as a alternative to pharmaceutical products out there. We want to help people, but in a natural way. We didn't touch and spend too much time on the you know, how the actual medicine will work once you start taking it. And I think if you'll just allow me 1 minute to spend on that, which is very important for your listeners. If you're on or if your doctor prescribes for one or another condition, a neurological condition you might have, an SSRI, it is important to understand that the working of that in your brain would take anything from 4 to 8 to maybe sometimes 12 weeks before the patient starts feeling the effect of the SSRI. And what then happens is that within 6 months from there, many times the dosages need to be upped. And, you know, you're starting to get in that cycle of daily use of these pharmaceuticals. What really interested me about this specific plant is it does have an effect on the neurological system. And if you, the workings of this, because it's a natural plant, is that if you are taking a product that is spec'd right in terms of your daily dose, your total alkaloids per daily dose, you as the user will experience the effect of it within 60 to 90 minutes after taking the dosage, which means that it opens up a huge new market in terms of products for the users out there. So we envisage to see Sceletium on many of the quick shops and the supermarket shelves, not only as a medicine, but also as a thing that you can use instead. You know, if you woke up in the morning and you didn't sleep well, people on their way to work will grab a Red Bull and they'll go on their way and take that. Now, in the near future, some friends of mine has put this very successfully in beverages. So you can now, instead of taking a Red Bull, you can take a Sceletium drink, And within 60 to 80 minutes, you'll have that calming effect that centers you for the whole of the day. And if tomorrow you wake up and you feel you're fine, don't take any Sceletium. But it can be taken every day without it being habit forming. So if you ever decide to stop using Sceletium, and we've had many people that's used it, that come to a feeling that said his body doesn't need it anymore, they don't take it. We see Sceletium not as a product that hooks you for the rest of your life. We see it as a product to bring balance again in your body, so that your body and your mind and your nervous system and your mental side of your whole being get into balance again, so that you don't need any external supplements for you to focus. We're very thankful to be able to speak to you and to your listeners. We are planning to put Sceletium in people's hands throughout the world. We're going global with this, and this is why we started the Sceletium Association through SAPA, is we want to prepare new markets and educate people of how to use Sceletium, what would be seen as a daily dose, a high daily dose, medium, and a small daily dose. And we want to position it in a way that people have alternative, as I say, to the pharmaceuticals. So we're all there to help and assist you and your clients with questions that might come up through the association. And with friends like you and credible companies like the one that you've set up, Sembra, we are really cannot wait to take hands and to grow together and help people with this fantastic product.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're certainly with you on this journey, and it's great to have connected. So thank you ever so much for speaking to us, and we hope to speak again soon, and take care.
Thank you, and all the best to you and your listeners, and may you be healthy and happy.